The girl seemed to feel sorry for the man, but she definitely didn't love him. The man approached her, his face scarred. He grabbed the girl's arm sharply. The Count charged that the girl had allegedly cheated on him. He was sure that the serpent had promised Madeline eternal love, and she had fallen for his tricks. The man claimed that Madeline remained his wife anyway, and he her husband. The girl was not perplexed by Ian's statement. The girl recalled that he had never addressed her as his wife, deciding that this marriage was over. The man squeezed the girl's hand hard, burning with jealousy, telling her that she wasn't going anywhere. Threatening her, he forbade her to leave even if the cursed estate collapsed. The girl wondered why the man was doing this to her. She refused to stay on the estate and cannot spend the rest of her life imprisoned like a ghost. The protagonist argued that the man had no right to keep her here. In fact, Madeline couldn't afford to love someone. Toward him, it was revenge, not love. It was revenge against Ian Nottingham, who had kept the girl locked up until she had languished. The protagonist decided that the end of it all would be her death. Madeline endured this hell for 6 years, but in the end, she remained only a disgraced, unfaithful wife. And the last thing the girl saw was how desperately the man was sobbing. The girl is fine with this arrangement too. If he is able to feel despair even for a second, that's enough for her. The girl was ready, even if hell awaited her. Alive or dead, she was ready to come to Hades. For at least in his domain, Madeline could be free of her husband. But when she opened her eyes, Rowanfield Manor appeared before her when she was 17 years old. The maid claimed that the girl had not been well at all lately, and everyone was worried about her, suggesting that it might have been some serious illness. The girl remembered that for the last 3 days she had been acting like a madwoman. She could cry, laugh, and then cry again, but still assured the maid that she was fine. The maid was still worried about how the girl was feeling, explaining that Madeline had never read a newspaper before. The girl remembered that in the year 1914, she started having bad luck. Her mother had died, and she and her father had lived relatively happily. The girl's father was obsessed with the luxurious aristocratic life, and she herself was not interested in anything but beautiful dresses. Madeline didn't care at all about what was going on in the world. For this reason, they could not keep up with the times. The girl recalls the night they lost their entire fortune because of a failed business venture. Her father couldn't handle it and hanged himself in his office. Since there was no mention of his own daughter in the will he left behind, the girl had to marry the Earl of Nottingham, a man she'd never even met. But even that possibility was a marvelous one for a girl in her position. Claiming that the war had traumatized him badly, they dragged each other into an abyss of despair, and their marriage ended in tragedy. The girl strolled through the woods, pondering the fact that she was 17 again, which meant they would soon lose their fortune. Pondering a plan to dissuade her father from investing in the venture, hoping for a changed future. But her father was on a grand tour traveling through Europe, a popular trip among English nobility between the 10th and early 19th centuries. The girl remembered that he had not mentioned her in his will, which made the girl very upset. The father turned to his daughter, inviting her to sit down with him in the carriage. The girl admitted that she resented her father for being able to so ruthlessly leave her with nothing, but still a part of her missed him. The girl had been given a second chance and she couldn't let it go, pondering a plan to find a way to survive the troubled times, but first and foremost, decides to avoid meeting Ian Nottingham at all costs. The father invited a special guest and introduced the man to her daughter, and it was Mr. Nottingham. The girl was stunned when she saw him. The father wondered if the lad had completed all the business that had caused him to go to town. The man was worried that he might have taken Ian out of his busy schedule with his invitation. The boy assured him that everything was fine. In the girl's previous life, Ian had been in London, so she'd never seen him. The father claimed that Nottingham's investment had been incredibly successful, noting the lad's business acumen. The girl was shocked to see Nottingham in front of her, remembering that in her past life, the guy had been a tyrant and treated her badly. He could yell at the girl, causing her to feel fear. The girl sat across from the guy, but was sure this was not the man she knew. The father asked the boy about his love of horseback riding. Nottingham confirmed and added that he especially liked horse racing. Madeline is surprised by the lad's answer, because in his past life, he limped and raised his voice at her. Therefore, he certainly couldn't be a man from her past. The girl married him at the age of 22. Before the marriage, she was very worried. The servant assured not to worry or be afraid, claiming that his lordship was a good man. The girl explained that she was only worried about whether she could be a good spouse. Madeline harbored no hatred for the lad, even though they did not love each other, but the girl believed that they would have a good marriage. The main heroine made a vow to be a beacon for such a wounded man, to be faithful to him, to help in his recovery, and to become a wise and worthy wife. However, on the first wedding night, the girl's humble dreams turned to dust. Thinking back, Ian never opened the door to their bedroom. Not the next day, not even a day later. Ian had no desire to spend a single minute of his life with the girl. Madeline claimed that he'd forgotten she existed. The guy assured her that wasn't the case at all. The next day, the man made a gift for the girl and got her a doggy so that she wouldn't get bored. It seemed to the girl that the puppy was just as scared as she was. They all arrived at Roanfield Manor, which was built in the Renaissance style. Father also ordered the best tea and cookies to be prepared, reminding the servants that they had a special guest. Father suggested that Madeline show Mr. Nottingham around the manor while everyone was busy setting the table. The girl pretended not to feel well. Soon, the father offered to play his daughter something on the piano while they drank tea. The protagonist apologized and said she would like to lie down. The guy claimed he didn't mind and was glad to meet the girl. The girl couldn't believe that Ian Nottingham was standing right in front of her, the guy not yet shattered by misfortune. Madeline thought that she should intervene in his life and make sure that nothing happened. The girl remembered that she had put up with a lot already, claiming that their path together had no future, so they'd better never get close again. They would both be better off if this brief encounter was their last. The girl was sure that she would be able to escape from her past life, and she wouldn't have to cross paths with him again. The protagonist pondered on the plan that she needed to sell the estate and land before the war started. And if they keep an eye on expenses and move to the countryside, they could hold out. Madeline decided that she should get her father to stop gambling and not throw money around. They would surely end up on the street sooner that way. Her father knocked on the door, asking to come in, and she wanted to visit him. Her father had given her an invitation from London, reminding her that now was the time for Madeline to make her debut in high society. The girl thought that now was not the time for balls and social gatherings. After asking her father if she was obligated to make her debut, her father decided that his daughter was unhappy, explaining that she read books all day and reminded her to save money, and now she also doesn't want to get married. The father insisted that the girl should make her debut in high society. The man claimed he had even bought them a townhouse in London so they could stay there. The girl interrupted him, emphasizing that he should sell that house. The father angrily asked the girl to stop talking nonsense. The girl also argued for him to forget about investing in the wine business. The father asked how she knew, suspecting that his daughter might have read his letters. The man recognized her act as very mean and low. The father anxiously argued for the girl to stay away from his business, citing that such things were not in her nature. The girl responded by threatening that if he invested even a penny more in the wine business, she wouldn't even look in the direction of high society and certainly wouldn't marry, tossing the envelope on the floor. The protagonist mentioned that if her father suddenly becomes stubborn, the girl will not hesitate to become a nun. The father was furious and forbade his daughter to leave the room until she apologized. While in London, the girl clarified whether her father had put the contracts on fire. The man reminded that the girl had been standing over his head and seeing all this time as it was. The protagonist asked about the copy. The father assured that he had no reason to lie to his daughter. The father asked that the girl let at least someone ask her to dance, claiming that she had already turned down 6 invitations and had scared all the young guys away. The protagonist explained that she wasn't sure yet. Her father reminded her that as the daughter of the Roanfield family, the girl had a duty to marry successfully and support their family. Desperate father couldn't understand his daughter. This season of socializing will be interrupted by the war anyway, and the girl no longer wants to play the role of a beautiful doll. This time, Madeline wants to choose her own fate, and if she can keep them from collapse, she will find the right path. Perhaps the girl will continue to learn to play the piano, because she heard that after the war, women could also work. Hoping that one day she would also find a job for herself. Ian came up to her and noticed that the girl was not interested in holidays at all. The protagonist asked the guy if he thought such events were strange. The guy just saw that people are having fun from the heart. The girl admitted that she was annoyed to watch people having fun, completely without imagining what awaits them in the future. The boy noted that there was some truth in her words. Nottingham reasoned that they did not know what the future held for them and dared not even guess, assuring the girl to enjoy the present while they could and to relax a little. Mr. Nottingham argued that refusing to rejoice in the present would not deter tomorrow from coming. The girl assured that she was relaxed, meaning such meaningless celebrations were only a waste of time. It seemed to the girl that there was no value in it all, and she was not burning to make people stop dancing. It's just that the protagonist herself doesn't want it. Suddenly, out of the blue, Ian suggested that she dance together. The guy appealed to Madeline to give him a dance. The girl was confused, because she was not obliged to save anyone. The protagonist was adamant that she should use her second chance at life to get as far away from him as possible, worried that if nothing changes and he goes to war, terrible things will happen to him there. War cripples not only his body, but his soul as well. A little push in the right direction wouldn't hurt if the girl made even a small difference in his life. The men sat around the table discussing that Madeline had refused to dance with 6 men. One of the guys claimed that she was making her debut and wasn't too desperate yet. Nottingham recognized the girl as the Baron's daughter. One of the men wanted to approach her, but the other assured her while he didn't know the girl, it wasn't polite. They are not in the Victorian era. Making conversation with a lady in their time was improper. Ian decided to approach Madeline, and his friend rebelled as he was the one who wanted to approach the girl. Nottingham's friend was surprised, as it was the first time the guy himself was going to approach any lady. The ladies nearby noticed that Ian and the main heroine were also dancing their 4th dance. The heroine inquired who the lady was, for it was an honor to dance with Mr. Nottingham. Another girl suggested that it was some noblewoman from the provinces. The lad inquired if she was well. Ian notices that her hands are shaking quite badly, and she looks at the guy as if she pities him. The girl decides whether to tell the guy or let go of his hand and never feel sorry again. After all, there is a chance that their fates will intertwine again, and they will have to go through loneliness and unhappiness, wondering the question of what a girl should do afterward. In a past life, when the girl was 26 years old, someone snipped her rose in the garden. She wondered who could have done it, since every person on the estate knows how much the girl cares for that garden. The protagonist assumed that her dog Cora had done it, but realized that the dog could eat the rose, but would hardly be able to bite it off so evenly. So the girl assumed that someone had plucked it. The girl hoped that the rose had brought that person some joy. Corey supported her mistress, and they continued to sit in the garden and chat together. One rainy afternoon, the protagonist lost her dog. The servant claimed that he would find Corey himself as soon as the rain cleared, asking the girl to return to the house. The girl insisted that she would find her dog herself, and he could go to the house. Sebastian worried that he couldn't just leave the girl behind. Madeline asked that the servant not pretend to care for the girl, claiming that he was only afraid of angering the Earl. Suddenly, Ian ordered the girl to return to the manor and to forget about Corey, mentioning that it was just an animal. The guy explained that he couldn't let a person get sick because of some dog. The girl was desperate and didn't understand how they could be so cold and callous about the loss of a dog. She recalled that the Count himself had given her the dog as a gift. The girl claimed that Corey was the only one on the estate who cared about her, but with coldness and renunciation, putting his hand on the girl's shoulder, the boy indicated her to go into the house. The protagonist remembered and felt the confusion and pain she had experienced in her past life. Isabelle inquired how she was feeling. The girl assured that she was fine. Madeline thanked the guy for their time together and wished him a good night. For his part, the guy noticed that the girl didn't warm up even after the 4 dances they had danced. The girl didn't expect to avoid the guy in such a tight, aristocratic circle for the rest of her life. She didn't expect to sit directly across from him, much less want to be part of a conversation in raised tones. Isabelle glared at her brother with a charge for not daring to speak like that. Ian advised the girl not to express emotion and lowered her voice, claiming that that was why the girl was being manipulated by that lowlife. The sister was irritated by her brother's statement and asked again, as she was puzzled by what she had heard. Madeline suddenly remembered who Isabelle Nottingham was. When Madison had married Ian, he had no living relatives. His younger brother, Eric, had volunteered for the front lines and died in battle, and his sister Isabelle had died in an accident before the fighting even began. Rumor had it that the accident was no accident. It was staged, for the girl was with a man from a less noble family. Unable to overcome the prejudice of society, the two of them decided to take their own lives. Madeline reflected on the fact that Ian would not have been so broken if he had living relatives. The girl noticed that after Isabelle's death, Ian never touched her things and always kept them in their place, as if he wanted to have an eternal reminder of bitter regret and longing. In a past life at the age of 22, the girl noticed the piano that Isabelle played, emphasizing that there wasn't a speck of dust in the room, as they take very good care of the piano and the whole room, which is cleaned to a shine. The girl was sure that Ian too had loved his sister very much, and that's why even after her death, he made sure her room was clean. As she wandered around the room, she came across a picture that showed Isabelle with a guy named Zachary Milov. Madison put the picture back down and noticed a handwritten musical notation. She had composed the piece herself, and this was a song that Lady Isabelle had written for her lover. The protagonist heard that Zachary Milov was a socialist. The girl was interested in what Isabelle was like, representing a refined lady who adored playing the piano or a woman in whom the passion was beating, that she was ready to die for love. The protagonist came to believe that no matter what kind of person Isabelle was, but the sound of her piano when she played must have wrapped even this gloomy estate in a sunny and pleasant embrace. It seemed to the girl that if Lady Isabelle had been alive, Ian would have been a little gentler. But suddenly the lad burst in, ordering her out of the room. The girl reminded the guy that she was his wife. After trying to explain herself to the guy, Madeline noticed that he wouldn't listen to her and ordered her never to dare enter that room again. She assumed that his reaction indicated that he had a strong attachment to his family. But now they were sitting around the table, ready to get at each other's throats. Isabelle insulted her brother, calling him a lowlife, claiming that Ian's company was robbing her of air and headed for the exit. The protagonist felt that she no longer wanted to live in such a place. Suddenly, the girl remembered that today was the day Isabelle died and decided to look into it. She left the table, explaining that she would be back soon. Madison shouted Lady Isabelle's name as she descended the stairs and abruptly grabbed her arm. The girl asked to get away from her, but the protagonist knew she was on her way to her lover. Isabelle was sure that she had been eavesdropping on their conversation the whole time and became angry. Isabelle claimed that all sorts of pushy women were lashing out next to her brother and assured the girl that she wouldn't get his attention that way. But Madison still tried to change her mind, saying that the heroine was on her way to see Mr. Milov. Isabelle wondered how the girl knew about him. The protagonist assured that she wouldn't tell anyone, since she didn't even know about socialism. Isabelle claimed that the girl was her brother's informant. But Madeline considered Mr. Nottingham a noble and well-mannered gentleman, but very stubborn. The heroine argued that her brother was not a gentleman at all, claiming that he was a master at tampering with people. The girl noticed that Madeline knew him very well. The girl advised Isabelle not to give in to his stubbornness and desire for control, admitting that she herself once broke her pride for the sake of a man and ruined her life with it. The protagonist regrets that she went down the road without return, just to vent her anger. The girl clutched the heroine's hand because she sincerely wanted to save the woman in front of her. The girl is trying to save the woman blinded by rage, which awaits a sad fate, and noticed that Isabelle is very similar to her. The protagonist assured the girl that there are many paths in the world, which Isabelle has not had time to try. The heroine thought that Madeline was acting rather strangely and asked her to let go of her hand. Then Ian appears and sees this picture, asking the girl to leave them alone, explaining that it concerns only him and his sister. Isabelle suddenly began to assert that she would stay with Madeline. The brother reminded his sister that she was molesting a lady she had just met. The heroine explained that they were just having a conversation, and he shouldn't interfere with their conversations. The guy reminded his sister that every action has consequences. Turning to Miss Roanfield, said that interfering in other people's families is not the most sensible behavior. The protagonist was disappointed that Ian didn't even bother to thank her for calming his sister down. But since the girl knows him well in a way, she expected something like this to happen. The protagonist, sitting in her room, reading the newspaper, remembered that last year the newspapers were only buzzing about Isabelle, but today they wrote about something else. The girl was obviously safe and sound. Madison was relieved that she had managed to cope. In her past life, there had been no one to stop Isabelle. And if this incident had been their last interaction with Ian, he had given his sister his own piano shortly after, thus apologizing to her. Madeline remembered that the next social evening would be at the Colhat's country estate. Arriving there, the girl noticed that Ian was gone, and she would be able to make a new acquaintance. George argued that even for the chance to accompany Madeline, it was worth organizing this evening. The girl was wary, remembering how in the past the guy had left girls in tears after seducing them with similar compliments. The guy asked if she was hungry. Madeline assured him that she wasn't. George asked if she had been to Vienna, admiring the modernity and picturesqueness of the city. George pondered the endless progress, but at the same time, the girl had thoughts of a war that could level this city. George was in the same class with Mr. Nottingham. People admired their elegance. The girl noticed his friend Eric and Isabelle next to Ian. Eric was unsure if mankind would continue its peaceful progress. Ian reasoned that people are selfish creatures, and it is inherent in them to compete with each other, destroying everything in their path. The guy also noted that it was through competition that people were able to make progress. The protagonist asked what the guy meant about development depending on military power. Ian explained that reforms always go hand in hand with violence, and George was sure that in our age it is impossible to war. The boy assured him that if the need arose, a new armed conflict was sure to occur. Ian was interested in Miss Renfield's opinion of progress. The girl agreed that military power was the key to development, but could not justify the millions of lives lost in the name of progress. The protagonist argued that Mr. Nottingham was correct in his statements, but the girl explained that wars start because of people who believe in the necessity of evil. The boy was interested in the girl's opinion. Madeline thought that she was too frank. Eric asked if anyone was going to tennis this year, admiring Ian and his game. The boy was even tempted to sign up for men's doubles. George would like to play tennis with Ian someday. Eric argued that he would have to learn first in order to compete with the guy. As the guys were talking, the girl just stood up and silently walked out. Ian took notice. The girl left the room regretting that she didn't want to express her disagreement with his opinion so openly. But the guy was not much upset about it. He even liked it. When the protagonist stood on the balcony, she noticed Isabelle walking with her favorite man. The girl admired their falling in love with each other. Isabelle is even ready to die for her beloved. The protagonist dreamed of loving someone the same way. And then, she was suddenly approached by Mr. Nottingham with a request to talk. The girl was worried that the guy did not notice his sister, so she came closer to him. The guy claimed that he wanted to talk to her about what had happened during their last meeting. Guy admitted that he shouldn't have scolded Madeline for reaching out for Isabelle. The girl realized that he was only concerned about his sister. She was worried about Isabelle not getting into trouble and decided to get Ian out of there right away. The girl offered the guy to come into the house, and Ian admitted that she had been discouraging him for some time. The protagonist firmly made it clear to the guy that she had no sympathy for him. It was as if the guy felt that the girl despised him. The girl assured him that it just seemed to him. The guy hoped that her dislike wouldn't get worse, because they both wouldn't benefit from it. He assured that they would never know what the future held for them. The girl noticed that it was getting colder and the sun was setting, suggesting to go inside. To Madeline, the boy's words about the future sounded as if there was only misfortune ahead. The girl suggested that the guy should go first, and she would go inside afterward. The protagonist explained that she wanted to admire the scenery a little more. Ian hoped that the girl would be able to open up to him for at least a brief moment. The guy respects the desire of the protagonist and decided to leave her alone today. However, he does not intend to retreat any further, he told the girl, looking straight into her eyes. At that moment, the girl suddenly remembered the couple enjoying each other in the garden, pondering how ridiculous they seemed in the eyes of those passionate lovers. Ian thinking obsession with love was incredibly ridiculous. The man stood in front of Madeline as if he were protecting her from the wind, when in fact he was only casting his shadow over her. In her previous life, when the girl was 25 years old, she had no idea how long she would have to live like this. She was sure that the state of inner loneliness, pain, and suffering would haunt her for the rest of her life. The girl was worried about what would happen to Corey if suddenly she was gone. But more important to her was what would happen to her if Corey died. If Ian left her in this godforsaken place, she might go insane. It seemed to the girl that she was doomed to spend all her days here like a ghost. She was afraid that she could remain imprisoned even after death, and would have to spend eternity alone in this mountain. The next morning, a servant informs Ian that Madeline has left the manor under the cover of night. The girl finds herself in a London movie theater. She can't believe that she was able to escape from home after all. The girl was worried about the commotion going on at the estate, worried about the boyfriend. She wondered if he was happy to get away from her, or if he was upset. The girl was watching a movie called Baby 1921st. It was a silent movie starring Charlie Chaplin, where a tramp finds an abandoned child and raises him. The girl marveled that it wasn't the man's child, but he does so much for it. There was not a drop of common blood in these two, and yet they are still a family. The girl cried hard while watching this movie. The girl came to the room and apologized for making Corey wait so long for her, poured food for her dog, and was in a joyful state. Sharing her impression of the wonderful movie and the way people moved on the wall really fascinated her. The girl felt good being free. Suddenly, she noticed that she had run out of dog food and was wondering where to buy it. Also looking at herself, she noticed dirty clothes and wondered where she could wash them. Suddenly, a telegram arrived for the girl, though not even a full day had passed since Madeline's departure. The note contained a letter from Ian saying that he would be waiting for her at the station. The girl was sure she had escaped when she managed to get to London, but she had jumped to conclusions. She felt, however, that she was now relieved in her mind. The girl wondered if it was possible to live comfortably in this world without inheritance or marriage. Before she died, she wished she could memorize the names of at least 10 companies where she could invest. It seemed to the girl that she deserved to be a fool more than a noblewoman. Suddenly, Mr. Nottingham approached her and noticed that the protagonist looked incredibly tired lately. The guy suggested that perhaps the London air doesn't suit her. The girl agreed that the air here could not be called clean and explained that she was staying up late because of her studies. The boy inquired about her study of ancient Greek. The girl assured him that she was closer to Greek tragedy and was thinking about how to avoid an unhappy fate. The lad assured that the young noblewoman had little to worry about such things and suggested that the cause lay in Mr. Ronefield. The girl realized that her father's habits of living large were known even in London, and she should have prepared for the worst. The lad advised the girl to find someone who could settle the matter for her, advising her to think practically. Madeline assumed that was what most people did, but what the girl really wanted was to live independently. She asked the guy if he hated himself so much that he began to hate other people. The guy didn't understand the question and why he should hate himself. The girl started laughing to lighten things up a bit and apologized, realizing that it was rude of her and the guy's self-confidence was admirable. Suddenly, George came in and addressed Miss Ronefield, saying that her father was bankrupt. The girl was at a loss and confused and quickly ran to find her father. The girl asked the maid how long her father had been in the bedroom. The maid claimed since dinner, emphasizing that the man had given orders not to let anyone in. The girl runs into the room, having already set herself up for the worst, and sees her father sitting on the bed next to the servant. They look at the girl in surprise. The servant comes running up before she can say that her father asked her not to let anyone in except the butler. The father wondered why his daughter was so nervous and asked her to behave like a lady. The girl didn't understand how it happened that they had gone bankrupt. The man replied with tears in his eyes that it happened because of him, explaining that the trading company the man had invested in had gone bankrupt and he had invested his entire fortune in it. Taking the girl's hand, he told her that his daughter was his only hope now. The girl was glad that her father had done nothing to himself and would try to help him at least somehow in this life. The girl assured her father not to worry, because they are alive and healthy, which means that everything will be solved. The girl began to develop a plan and said that the first step would be to sell the land and house in London and then go to work to pay off the debt. Her father interrupted her and told her not to talk nonsense, in not understanding why nobles should work. The man reminded her that Mr. Nottingham had taken a fancy to her. Her father emphasized that he had little time for the opposite sex, and for her he was wasting his time, assuring that if he didn't know that, he would have hanged himself long ago. The father argued that if not Nottingham, then any other place, advising his daughter to stop being a woman's fool and start looking for a decent life partner. The girl was disappointed that her father was adamant that she should marry a moneybag. The girl is sure that if they sell the land, the townhouse, and Renfield Manor, they will somehow get by. But what they would do for a living after that, the girl didn't know. While at the named party, Mr. Periel came up to the girl and greeted her. The man was pleased to see that Madeline liked his soiree and asked her to dance. The girl was confused and decided to apologize, making excuses for not feeling well. The man reminded her that there had been an accident in her family, but thanks to her, Mr. Renfield had nothing to worry about. The man argued that 17 is the prime of youth, and surely the girl has enough gentlemen willing to lend a helping hand. He was sure, however, that she could not do without him. The girl strongly wanted to sass him, but remembered that they are not in the best position and could only make things worse. So she decided to ignore it and thanked the man for his advice. Suddenly, Ian appeared and asked the man to turn up the music, assuring him that there was some nasty squeaking in his ears, claiming it was the bleating of a drunken dumbass, unable to distinguish between wise advice and inconsideration. The man went off in fear and a tremor through his skin to practice his music. George approached the lad, claiming that he had pounced on the poor host of the evening, but Ian was not one to stand by. George wondered, since when did the lad start caring about Miss Renfield? Suddenly, the main character is grabbed by Isabelle's hand with the story that a new catalog of dresses has come out, offering the girl to look together. After the girls stepped aside, Madeline asked why the catalog in particular. The heroine explained that she hadn't found a topic more appropriate to justify leaving. Isabelle thought the protagonist could see the future and communicate with the dead, assuming she was a medium. Isabelle remarked that she was acting very mysterious. She reminded that the girl knew not only the name of her lover, but also what she was going to do. The girl clarified that Isabelle really wanted to die, but the girl assured that she just wanted to go for a ride in a car, although she was a little drunk. Mirabelle noted that this was incredibly stupid. Isabelle seemed to be a favorable girl, but it turned out that for a word in his pocket is not climbing. Madeline in this life is not much striving to save face. The heroine noted that the girl talks just like her brother. The heroine thought that they could become good friends with her. She liked the protagonist a lot and admitted that her brother intended to invite her to their house. The protagonist pampered herself with the thought that in this life she changed a lot. But apparently, fate will not leave her alone and will take her back to the past. Her father asked her to wear pink, but she disobeyed, because she had no desire to go undressed in bright colors, intending to ask for financial help. The father recognized that his daughter could be impenetrable and provided a letter from the Earl of Nottingham for the girl. Noting that the letter was sent by his eldest son for Madeline, the father wondered why he would be invited by a family he had not had the honor of meeting before. The girl asked that her father not get his hopes up too high. The girl said that the Nottinghams were a wealthy, influential family, and she doubted that any of them would be interested in the daughter of an impoverished baron. She bet her father that Mr. Nottingham had not even written the letter. Her father asked the girl not to be so angry, for the lad had sent the invitation even knowing their situation, assuring her that they need to get him comfortable with them in order to get any help they can. The girl is sure that this arrogant man will not propose to her, probably just trying to satisfy some moral obligation of his. The servants welcomed Lord Renfield and Miss Renfield, the protagonist recognizing in the servant her old friend. Distracted by Ian, the girl forgot that she might meet other people. The girl noticed that Sebastian in his youth looked very kind. He asked her how she was feeling, and Madeline assured him that everything was fine. The father and the girl were greeted by the whole Nottingham family, who said they were looking forward to seeing them. The man introduced his wife Catherine, as well as their eldest son Ian. Lord Renfield admitted that they were honored to be invited into their home. The girl thanked his lordship for the invitation, and remembered that in a past life she had not had time to meet the Earl and his wife. His lordship had been crippled by an illness which then took the man's life just before the outbreak of war. And Lady Nottingham, who had survived the deaths of her 2 children, slowly faded from grief and eventually went to the worst of the world too. In the portrait, the Earl seemed cold, but in life, if you ignore the illness, looks quite happy. It was nice for the girl to see how he behaved with his wife. Mr. Ian invited Madeline to their palace. The girl graciously agreed, and despite her misgivings, their visit to Nottingham Manor went without incident. Things seemed very different in the palace than they had been in her previous life. She noted that the people were full of energy. Everyone was playing, having fun, and enjoying life. She discovered how different everything was, and even began to see Ian in a different light. If disaster hadn't befallen this family before her arrival, perhaps their past lives had had a very different outcome. The girl thought about how, if she had been here sooner, she and Ian would have had a very different life and relationship. The elder Nottingham asked how they were feeling in their home. Roanfield assured her that everything was wonderful, and even their tea was perfect. The girl struggled to find the words to express her gratitude fully. The protagonist contemplated bringing up the question of their financial situation. Suddenly, Mr. Nottingham thanked Madison and noted that they were not going to interfere with the young people. Her father advised her to be compliant, and afterward, everyone left the room. The protagonist was at a loss when the guy got down on one knee and asked her to marry him. The girl was in confusion and did not understand why the man was doing this. He realized that he had taken her by surprise, but explained that news of her family's bankruptcy had reached him. The guy assured her that he could provide what they needed. He had discussed the matter with her parents, so nothing more was required of her. The guy proposed marriage to her, pulling out a dainty engagement ring. He added that the girl had probably noticed the state of his father's health, and he would like his father to see it in time. The girl tensed and angrily clarified exactly what his father wanted to see. She asked Ian if he loved her. That question put the guy in a stupor. The guy explained that he couldn't call his feelings for the girl something so fleeting, but he feels sympathy and similarities, claiming that the girl behaves like a strange philosopher, reasoning about ideals far from the real world. The guy apologized in advance for the rudeness. The girl seems to him aware of her father. Remembering her words that she did not wish to live at someone else's expense, assured that he would be the best partner to realize this goal. Ian preferred the lady of his heart to be sensible, not naive like all the young maidens from other houses, emphasizing that she should not miss her chance to become his wife. But the girl had not come to marry. The girl was planning to leave, but the guy abruptly took her hand and inquired if she needed time to think. But she abruptly snatched her hand away and replied she did not want to sell herself to a man because of her father's debt. The girl, through aggression, said that she did not burn with the desire to make a mistake again. The guy didn't understand what kind of mistake he was talking about. He explained that his offer benefited not only him, but also her. Ian assured that he didn't mean to humiliate Madeline. The girl turned to Mr. Nottingham and said that they couldn't be together. The guy asks for at least one reason and feels like the girl thinks he's a fool. The girl explains that they are destroying each other. The guy was disappointed, and they turned away from each other. The girl realized that she shouldn't have come here. She was in a lot of pain. Even though he hadn't managed to do anything wrong, she had no hope for a relationship. In her past life, she had sat on her bed and cried because she had lost her favorite dog. The girl was worried about what had happened to him. Sebastian approached her and brought her dog to her. The girl was happy and asked where and how they found the dog. The servant explained that a gardener had found him this morning. Corey was soaked but generally fine. The girl inquired as to where that gardener was now. Sebastian claimed that he had merely done his job. Suddenly, he said that Mr. Nottingham was down with a slight cold. The girl was worried about how he was feeling. Sebastian explained that the doctor had prescribed bed rest and asked him not to go to the top floor. The girl wondered why the guy had a cold today. She decides to go into the room to make sure that Ian is okay. The girl noticed a wet coat in the room with water dripping off it. She realized that he had been looking for Corey while it was raining. The girl put her hand to the guy's forehead to check his temperature. Ian was burning up all over. The guy blurted out a vision of Isabelle. He took her hand and apologized to the girl. He realized that he should have let her live her life the way she wanted, and everything happened because of his selfishness. The girl asked the guy to calm down and reminded him that she wasn't Isabelle, but his wife. The girl explained that she was Madeline, his spouse. It was as if the guy was seeing her for the first time. Ian looked at her lovingly, saying the girl's name with admiration that she was his wife. Madeline looked at the lad with mesmerized eyes as he looked at her. During the war, addressing Lieutenant Nottingham that the soldiers were badly wounded and the enemy was advancing. A bunch of cries for help, but soon the guy woke up and realized it was just a nightmare. The guy saw that his wife Madeline had fallen asleep next to him, holding his hand. The guy wondered what the girl was doing in his bedroom. Ian was surprised that she was grooming him. The man claimed that as he felt much better, her hand dispelling his nightmares and pulling him out of his memories of the war. Remembering that their marriage was made out of simple necessity, a flawed wife for a flawed earl. The lad was broken by the war, and she a young, utterly simple-minded noblewoman who had seen absolutely nothing of the horrors of armed conflict. They were complete opposites. Guy turned to Sebastian, deciding that with a dog, the girl would not be so lonely. The girl was looking for a way into his world, and she moved him into hers. Guy doubted he had the right to be with Madeline, for he had committed too many sins. The guy was afraid that he would drag the girl into his own hell, and he couldn't let that happen. Suddenly, the protagonist woke up and reminded the guy that he had a terrible fever. Ian assured her that everything was fine already. The guy asked how Corey was, and the girl replied that the little schoolboy was fine. Ian suddenly recalled that Madeline had recently wanted to go to the movies. He explained that the girl could leave the estate at will now, and he wasn't going to keep her here. The girl assumed that he would expect her to thank him, but the guy assured her that he was only concerned about her. Reminded her that the world was a dangerous place. From now on, she could attend all the dinner parties and celebrations she wanted. The girl wondered what could have prompted the guy to soften after so many years, first rescuing her and now letting her go to the movie theater. The guy explained that he just didn't want to drag the girl into his scorcher. The girl asked not to say that, but keeping quiet wouldn't undo the fact that it was true. The protagonist argued that the guy could pick as many roses as he wanted, since it was his garden too. The girl hoped that their relationship would grow into something good. This could be her last chance. The guy looked into the girl's eyes and thanked her. Madeline noticed that after that day, he became a little more polite, before he hardly even answered her. Suddenly, the girl noticed a book that was in his office. It was a first edition of Tamerlane the Great. The guy let the girl take it to read. She clarified whether she could take the book for herself. Noticing his look, she realized that she had been hasty in making him kinder. The girl corrected herself, saying she wanted to take the book temporarily and knew it wasn't hers. Abruptly, Ian interrupted, saying that this book now belonged to Madeline, adding that everything here belongs to her. The girl's garden is his garden, so his office is her office too. The girl was shocked by this statement. On the one hand, she was pleased, on the other, unexpected. The guy asked Sebastian about the status of repairing the mansion's fence. The guy was worried that if a war suddenly broke out, the most important thing was to take care of at least minimal defense. That's why he asked to take care of it personally. The girl wished that the guy would stop thinking about the war, and for a moment at least change his mood. She noted that this book is the first edition of an old play. Apparently the guy likes such things. Madeline decided to have a movie screening. Sebastian thought it was too much, and there was no place to hold the screening, so there was still so much to prepare. The girl argued that it could be held in the double chapel. It was the first task from Ian. The girl wanted everything to go perfectly, and was sure that everyone else would like it too. Sebastian suggested having a tea party like everyone else does. The main character thought that this mansion needed a bunch of changes. It might be a bad idea, but she wants to show Ian that the world is becoming the same. If they are getting further and further away from the war, it's time to start slowly changing. Like this mansion, Ian and herself. Sebastian stood in shock, admiring the girl's beautiful red roses, apologizing for not being able to understand the depth of the message she wanted to show. And he would do his best from now on. One of the servants asked what to do with the trophy, and it was Sebastian's hunting trophy. He told the servant to leave it in her room. The girl promised to return it right after the party. The girl was worried about everything going well, and they began to prepare in earnest for the show. A lot of things had to be taken care of, from decorating the clock to preparing treats, and from all these troubles, the girl was quite exhausted. But all the liveliness in the mansion made her feel alive. But Ian did not react in any way, so he actually tried to show his respect, showing complete indifference. The girl decided to check and knocked on the guy's door, wondering how long he would be working. For Ian, work was also a kind of vacation. The girl admitted that she was a little nervous since it was the first time she was inviting so many people over. The girl wanted to hear support from Ian and was worried that something might go wrong. They sent out all the invitations, but didn't socialize much with the guests, and this was her first event as a countess. The protagonist wanted everything to go smoothly. The guy assured the girl that she did a good job as it was. The protagonist liked this answer and claimed that after the tea party, she was going to have a movie show and asked if he had ever watched a movie. The guy had only watched it once at an exhibition in Paris. The girl took the guy by the shoulder and told him that he should definitely watch the movie with her, and it should be very interesting. Soon she left the room so the guy could rest. On the day of the screening, a lot of people came, which Madeline was very happy about. There wasn't much separation between nobles and commoners in their day, but every single outfit was not alike. The girl doubted that Ian would show up because of so many looks, and hoped that he would still come. Unexpectedly for the girl, the guy came out and introduced himself to all the guests, introducing himself as the owner of this mansion. The guy thanked everyone for coming and hoped people had a great time. The girl looked at him like mesmerized, and he apologized for being late. The girl said they were just about to start the fashion show. The guy offered to go together and suddenly noticed that his hand was shaking and reminded her that he shouldn't overexert himself unnecessarily. The guy realized that it was hard for her to meet the guests alone. The girl was worried, but the guy assured her that everything was fine and he wouldn't mind watching a movie himself. The girl was pleased that he decided to watch the movie with her. Here begins a movie show directed by Buster Keaton called General 1927. The guy was interested in what kind of movie it was. The girl admitted that she herself did not really know what it was about. The girl explained that it was a new movie by one of the most famous movie directors of our time. The girl decided that it would be interesting to watch it together. The guy noted that the girl tried hard. They all watched the movie together. The girl liked that he watched the movie carefully. And in general, when Ian came, the party could be considered finished. The girl was sure that Ian would not come to the movie screening and decided to thank him later. She hoped they could get a little closer. The guy suddenly felt sick. Memories of the war flashed back. He started to shake and was trembling all over. The girl screamed and begged for help. A doctor arrived and assured him that the Count's symptoms were more like a nervous fit. He noted that he could use some rest and ordered him to be taken to his bedroom. The doctor said that the boy might bite his tongue and asked him to put a cloth in his mouth. The girl clarified if he was sure the doctor was sure. The guy assured that he had a doctorate in psychiatry and had worked as a medical professional for a while. The doctor introduced himself as Cornell Arlington, the eldest son of Baron Arlington. The guy provided his business card, which indicated that she was a doctor, a psychiatrist. The girl remembered being so happy when the doctor showed up, but she didn't realize that death itself was welcome. And then came the 28th of June, 1914. The protagonist heard 2 shots ring out in Sarajevo, and that was the beginning of the war. Sebastian said that the girl could stay in the townhouse for a month until summer, and he would try to find a new house for her. Following Austria, Germany, and Russia, the British eventually declared war. The people were full of patriotism, and almost everyone went to the front. Those who did not participate in the war were called cowards, and the newly minted soldiers who were ready to defend their homeland were highly valued. In her past life, the girl behaved just like all people. Back then, Madeline didn't know how hard things could be to sacrifice in exchange for patriotism. The girl was sitting in her room thinking that things were very different now. Suddenly, the drunken father burst into the room out of his sober state and insulted the girl with a nasty damn thing. The father had been drinking and accused the girl of having no money at all because of her and having to choke on cheap booze, claiming that if she had agreed to get married, none of this would have happened. The girl was discouraged by her father's behavior and argued for him to stop and come to his senses. Madeline said that she had sold this house and needed to urgently look for a new place to live. The man was shocked by his daughter's statement. The girl also asked him to stop matchmaking her all the time. The father accused his daughter of being used to doing as she pleased, claiming that he did not need such a wayward daughter and refused to be her father. The father admitted that he would rather be alone than with Madeline. The man said that if he had known that this would happen, he would have bought a house with the money he spent on her upbringing. He added that the girl was of no use to him. The girl realized that the man who had once called himself her father had never really loved her. Sooner or later, it would have ended that way. Already, 2 of Mr. Nottingham's children had volunteered to join the army. If all the decent lads sign up and go to the front, the girl's end was threatened by her father. The girl pondered, what if the story of life goes on as originally destined? If this is really the end, the girl wanted to say something goodbye to Ian. In a past life, when the girl was 27 years old, the maid had asked Madeline if it was possible to heal people in such a violent way. The girl assured her that it was the latest cure and offered to trust her. The girl knocked on the guy's room and apologized for waking him up and worrying about how bad he was feeling. The guy claimed that if the girl meant the cure, he should get better soon. The guy claimed that he was no longer able to continue living like this, but he should try to get better. The doctor assured the girl that he was a member of the kingdom's medical profession. He was a very talented man, and the lad should definitely get better. The doctor told Ian that having healed him, he would apply the same experience to save the others, asking the girl not to worry and he would feel better soon. The doctor came into the room and approached the girl asking to talk to her about her husband. The lad claimed that His Excellency was suffering from frequent fits of concussion accompanied by more shock. The doctor claimed that no special methods were being used at the moment that could reduce susceptibility to such concussions. The doctor recalled what he had said last time, that this disease often affects former war heroes. They are still doing research to this day. Most of their patients are cured after the therapy they underwent. The girl was very happy with this news and didn't even know how to thank the doctor. But Arlington assured that it was just his job. The girl inquired about what she could do to help. The doctor asked the girl to stay away from His Excellency for a while, explaining that the patient needed time alone after exposure to the stimulus. The doctor assured that His Excellency should overcome all the pain by himself, explaining that such treatment was like cutting out a festering wound, and there should be no hesitation. The girl was disturbed by these statements of the doctor. The girl was upset that they were up to the madness of the display. Ian was in this position, so also she was interfering with the treatment. Madeline was very upset by the events that were happening. The doctor assured her that everything was wrong, and his information should simply be taken as a recommendation from the doctor that would maximize the smoothness and effectiveness of the treatment. The doctor asserted that the most important thing in treating a seizure was to keep the mind in order. Henceforth, all communication with the Count would be through the doctor himself. He would inform the girl of his condition every week. The doctor and his device were in the room. The doctor was telling the lad that he was putting up with it for his wife's sake, pressed the fact that the girl had to almost bust her ass to take care of His Excellency's mangled body. The doctor insisted that Ian must become a worthy spouse, able to survive on his own. At the same time, he was preparing some kind of injection, claiming that only then could they begin the real treatment. At that time, psychiatric treatment was usually just that. The girl in her room heard screams and remembered that at that time, she believed Arlington's words so much that she thought such screams served as a sign of improvement. The protagonist noticed that the attacks had become much less, but the guy looked even more gloomy than he had been before. The girl suggested that the guy open the curtains to show the good weather outside the window. Ian advised the girl to leave as she was only getting in the way. The girl inquired how he was feeling, but the guy interrupted and told her to get out. He hoped that henceforth the girl would no longer harass him while he was working. Madeline felt as if the warmth that was between them had turned into a dream. She asked the doctor if Ian was on the mend. She admitted she was not well versed in the matter and hoped the doctor could explain everything. The doctor provided a book and assured her that it would help her understand the boy's condition, emphasizing that the mistress would be interested in studying it and hoped that Madeline would want to learn more about this area. The protagonist didn't understand what he meant by the doctor. The doctor explained that the girl could make an excellent nurse, seeing with what devotion the girl took care of the sick count. She faithfully followed all recommendations from the doctor. The doctor considered Madeline very talented and would like to see the girl as his assistant, claiming that the count could hardly help her anymore. The girl was furious at hearing the statement. Dr. Arlington explained that the situation would not improve in the direction the girl wished. He suggested that she go on a long journey with him to learn the work of a nurse. Arlington noted that the girl had a special gift and didn't want the girl to waste it, advising her not to continue to be an obedient wife. It was a kind of revenge on the Earl who imprisoned Madeline. Guy pointed out that the girl could consider it a kind of amicable agreement, imprisoning her. The doctor suggested that she study wherever she wanted and asked what she thought about leaving with him. The maids gossiped that Dr. Arlington had suggested that Mistress go with him. One of the maids wondered about Mistress's response, but the heroine assured her that the girl had answered nothing. The maids reproached the girl with the fact that she was a common noblewoman with huge debts, and without the Count now did not live. They wondered when Mistress and Dr. Arlington had become so intimate. One maid speculated that they might have known each other from the beginning. The maid reminded the other that Mistress Madeline had once avoided Dr. Arlington 2 years ago, and suggested that she and he might have met somewhere. The maids wondered what they should do, because if it turned out to be true, they would feel very sorry for the Earl. Ian stood behind the wall and was shocked at what he had heard from the maids. Nottingham was in his room worried that Madeline had decided to leave him and couldn't believe the girl was capable of such a thing. After all, he did everything for the girl as her husband, and even more. For the sake of gaining her warmth, and between them, everything seemed real to him. The guy began to remember when it could happen, describing the main character as a woman whose face turned stony at the sight of the Count appealed to him. Guy recalled that when he went looking for the dog, he ended up getting sick. Despite asking Sebastian not to send anyone, she was still there for him. The guy didn't understand what the girl was thinking as he lay unconscious. Assuming she could, she hoped Ian would die soon, and so decided to call a doctor. It seemed to him that the girl knew the plot of the movie in advance. She'd even called in people to make the whole show. The guy claimed that she kept coming to watch him being tortured. It seemed to the guy that the girl had been waiting all this time for the right moment to escape from a monster like him, feeling completely shattered by these thoughts. Suddenly, Miss Madeline entered the room, wondering why the Count was drinking, since he wasn't allowed to yet. The girl reminded him that Dr. Arlington had asked him to abstain from alcohol. Reacting aggressively to the way she spoke of the doctor, the boy answered the girl rudely. He claimed that he and the doctor had become close. She might actually become a doctor. The girl assured that she wanted nothing of the sort and was only worried. Suddenly, the boy rebelled and pointed out that he was the master of this house and no one dared to order him around. The girl explained that wasn't what she meant to say at all. The protagonist explained that now the final stage of treatment was underway, and the guy shouldn't be allowed to suddenly get bad. She assured that the sooner the Count recovered, the sooner Dr. Arlington would leave. It seemed to the lad that the girl might leave with him. The girl understood that the lad was grateful and counted a lot on the doctor, but as soon as the treatment was over, Arlington would leave at once. It seemed to the guy that the girl no longer wished to be with him. It seemed to the guy that the girl thought he was nasty, and his pennies wouldn't make her stay. It was long past time for Ian to realize that it wasn't that simple. The guy created another projection of the girl. While she was worried about his condition, he saw a completely different Madeline. It was as if the girl was saying that the guy didn't have the brains to decide to have her beauty be together with such a lowlife. The guy ordered the girl to return to her bedroom immediately, claiming that since Madeline had been sold to an earl, she should behave appropriately, rebuked that if it wasn't for Ian, she would have been on the streets long ago. The girl was shocked at this statement from the lad. The guy argued that if she heard everything well, then let everything go back to her, ordering the protagonist to live quietly, as it is supposed to be the wife of the Count. The girl sat in her room on her bed and couldn't understand how the Count could say such a thing. Even considering his illness, she couldn't take it anymore. Recognizing that she no longer had any strength left at all, suddenly, Dr. Arlington entered the room and gave the girl a report on the Earl's health this week. He noted that the lad had begun to perceive electrical charges normally, so only preventive treatment would be needed next. Guy noted that the girl had done a good job. The girl said the doctor could have called her in advance and shown her all the paperwork. He didn't have to come to her bedroom to see her. The doctor apologized for disturbing her and explained that he had little time today as he was leaving, claiming that his lordship the Count had ordered it. After asking the girl if she had thought about his proposal, Arlington reminded the girl that Madeline was very talented and capable. He said that the world was changing very quickly now, and he grabbed her by the shoulders. The doctor reminded her that she didn't have to spend her life serving her husband just because she was his girlfriend. The doctor assured her to forget those outdated rules, and she would be better off if she left with him. The girl sharply pushed him away, saying that it might reflect badly on the Earl and his illness might worsen. Arlington said not to hope that the girl could become a favorite wife for him. He advised her to take off her rose-colored glasses, mentioning that Ian had even started drinking despite the doctor's recommendations. The doctor explained that his words might sound harsh, but said that Nottingham was a failure as a patient and a man. The girl yelled at him to stop talking nonsense. The girl asked for the doctor to stop insulting them. The doctor addressed Madeline as the unfortunate one and explained that there would never be another chance to escape from here. The boy assured her that if not him, who else could offer her such an opportunity? He suggested that the girl would never get another chance like that again. Arlington pressed the girl and her current living conditions on the estate. He noticed that the girl was caught up in his words and went on to explain that she needed to face the truth, believing that it was impossible to live under lock and key on the Earl's estate for the rest of her days. The doctor spoke in her ear about how it was too cruel to herself. The only thing Nottingham had done in the name of love was to put her in fetters. Suddenly, the girl succumbed to the pressure at Dr. Arlington's side and began to cry heavily. She realized his rightness and wanted to follow him. Ian came into the room and heard all this. He walked up to Madeline and asked if she was scared of him up close. Abruptly grabbing the girl by the arm, he began to claim that she had decided to trick him despite his good treatment of her. The doctor whispered words of love to the girl, and she believed him in everything. At that moment, she remembered the doctor's words, saying that the Count had imprisoned her. The girl couldn't believe that she was putting up with all this. The girl said with tears in her eyes, kept saying that he could think anything, but she couldn't understand why the man was doing this to her. Madeline decides to leave and Nottingham can't stop her. Present day. Isabelle suddenly enters the room and informs her brother that Madeline has arrived. She reminded him that she was the girl who refused to marry him. A few hours ago, they had been standing under their father's door as a family. Isabelle wondered to her mother how her father was feeling. Her mother tearfully informed her that tonight would probably be a crucial night. Isabelle asked Eric if he was really that eager to fight. His sister reminded him that the second son didn't have to go if the first son was already going. The boy argued that it was his duty to his country as a nobleman. The girl frantically argued for the lads to stop talking nonsense, explaining that to be on the front line and die there like a mongrel is nothing heroic. At this point, the mom was calming Isabelle down. The boy claimed that he was going to volunteer, but because of them, he was transferred to the rear. Eric noted that this hit his reputation very hard. His sister Isabelle claimed that he'd only survived because of her. Isabelle appealed to Ian to be careful, noting that he was an idiot, but worried that her brother would be able to defend himself. The boy argued that his sister had said enough and advised him to keep his mother and himself safe. The girl assured him that there was no need to worry about her. Eric reminded his sister that his father could hear everything in the room. Ian told his mother that he would stay in his room for now. His mother told her son to rest. In his room, the lad pondered the fact that the likely end of his father was getting closer, and pondered the plan that after the funeral, he would have to go to the front. Ra from the draft cannot escape. It remains only to endure everything steadfastly. The boy also pondered the fact that Isabelle would have to take care of the mansion while he and Eric were gone, and about how at first he thought Madeline was just like everyone else. But the more they talked, the more he wanted to socialize with her. The boy admitted that his eyes were constantly drawn to her smile, and he wanted to help her family to see her even more dazzling smile. Ian would daydream and dissolve into memories of her, but those thoughts drove him away, and he noted that it didn't matter now. Suddenly, the girl came to Ian. The guy was surprised that she came to him. He claimed that she didn't seem to understand, and he was telling her to come back, wondering what she was doing here. The girl came to him to say something. The guy interrupted and wondered if it was so important that the girl had the nerve to barge in here. The protagonist realized that she rather looked like a crazy person and knew that this was crazy, and she shouldn't mess with him anymore. Ian found that her words were now repeating themselves. She had said them when she refused to get married. She inquired if the guy really needed to go to war. The guy claimed that his decisions had nothing to do with the girl. The protagonist stated that he could lose everything in the war, and it really bothered her. The girl took the guy's hand and asked him not to leave. She realized that he might think she was crazy, but she admitted that she herself was experiencing such feelings for the first time. The guy was surprised by the girl's statement, since he thought she hated him. Madeline said that maybe she felt sorry for him, but her feelings weren't important right now, because the main thing was that she was speaking sincerely. The guy argued that even if he'd proposed to a girl, yet didn't give her the right to decide what he should do. Ian emphasized that war was serious, and he was willing to lose a lot. Guy reminded the girl that he wasn't stupid enough to go to war unprepared. Ian argued that if she was worried about him, she shouldn't do it. The conversation ended, and the guy reminded her that it was getting late. Offering the protagonist to stay the night, he himself left. The girl felt broken, but was not going to give up. The girl shouted after the guy why he made her an offer, reminded that he did so not because he loves her. She emphasized that there was no profit in it. The girl claimed that she would be the right woman for the Count, but only if Ian promised not to go to war after their marriage. She believed to the last that she could change his mind. The girl asked the Earl to promise that if he married her, he would not go to the front. The Count assured her that it went beyond all boundaries and reminded her that the girl had always wanted to find someone who would love her. The guy noted that if the girl had refused his proposal on such a condition, it wouldn't have hurt his honor that much. Nottingham emphasized that he wasn't going to submit to her whims anymore, and no amount of words from the girl would change his decision to go to the front. Madeline was disappointed and didn't think it would have been better for her not to come at all. She had hoped too much that the guy would listen to her, but justified to herself that she couldn't leave it at that. But suddenly, the girl decided that she wasn't going to just stand by and watch their lives turn to hell and ran after the guy. The main character grabbed the guy's hand and looked at him with tears in her eyes. The girl begged him not to leave, but the guy was confused, not knowing how to react. The girl held the guy's hand and begged him not to leave. The guy thought so from the beginning and called the girl strange indeed. He couldn't predict Madeline's actions, which fascinated him even more about her. The guy argued that if the girl was worried about him, then she had no good reason to act like that. Recalling the words of the protagonist that she spoke, about his arrogance and stubbornness, that she didn't like and didn't want to have such a companion. At parting, the guy expressed his hope that there would be someone better for the girl than him, and left her alone, soaking in the rain. The girl was disappointed that she couldn't change their future. The girl was leafing through the newspaper, looking for a job and wondering what she would do. She saw the list of dead soldiers and worried, thinking about Ian being alive. The girl should never have asked Dr. Arlington to cure the boy, claiming no matter how advanced the treatment was, his condition only worsened. The girl was afraid that he would come back after all, and she could not pretend that they did not know each other. But suddenly, a letter came to her. The girl wondered who could have known she lived here. The letter contained a greeting for Lady Madeline. Initially, the girl expected to send it to the girl, but in the end, she decided not to hesitate, for she had sent similar letters to everyone she knew. So, Isabelle thought long and hard about what would be best to do during the war and decided to turn Nottingham Mansion into a military hospital for disabled veterans. She decided to send an invitation for the girl. Isabelle claimed that although their mother was against it, no one would be able to stop her. The girl was looking for someone who had learned nursing and offered to volunteer with her. She also promised to provide lodging, food, and even a small fee. Isabelle welcomed Madeline and mentioned that the girl was the first to arrive here. She clarified that she didn't have a very good reputation in Soviet society and didn't really expect the girl to come after what had happened to her brother. After that was said, Isabelle led the girl to her room. The room wasn't too big since a maid used to live here. Isabelle explained that all the remaining guest rooms had been converted into training rooms. Isabelle emphasized that because of the economy, they had to disband all the maids, and now they would have to handle everything themselves. She assured that there was nothing wrong with that. The girl liked the idea very much, and they worked out together what to do next. Isabelle noted that her room was right next to Madeline's and suggested that the girl lay out her things and then go into the kitchen together. Since it was dinner time, they needed to have time to get everything ready. The cook was worried about Isabelle, fearing that she might cut herself, and suggested that she just leave it to him. The girl replied that there was a war going on at the moment, and it was time for everyone to unite, so she was not going to stand quietly by. The cook agreed but asked her to be more careful. The girl asked that they no longer use such expensive utensils and reminded them to replenish the staff. She reminded that they would have to feed a lot of people in the future. Suddenly, Madeline came into the kitchen and offered to help. Isabelle reminded that a nurse was due to arrive very soon to train them, and then they could become nurses themselves. The nurse arrived and introduced herself by the name of Eve Oates. She announced that from now on, she would be responsible for teaching both Isabelle and the other girls about nursing. She also warned that they could not become professional nurses in such a short time. The girl warned them to get rid of their great fantasies of becoming the great Nightingale Florence. She was the creator of an independent nursing profession, who revolutionized the public consciousness and views of the role and place of the nurse. Eve Oates also reminded us that there are probably many things that would be difficult for noble ladies to accept. For example, organs, blood, or young soldiers screaming in pain, or something even worse. Still, the nurse assured that the door was always open for medical students and she was always willing to help them. But only if they themselves are willing to put in the effort and study hard. The nurse offered to start the class. Eve Oates explained about keeping a small distance when winding a bandage and demonstrated this on Isabelle. The girls devoted over 10 hours each day to nursing instruction and continued to work in place of the absent servants. The protagonist was badly tired, but she had never felt so happy and felt as if she was freeing herself from her past life. 2 months passed. Isabelle confided to the girl that she was worried about her brothers, as well as there were difficulties with the hospital arrangement. She realized that such things were forgotten when one was working. Madeline claimed that the heroine was very similar to Mr. Nottingham. The protagonist explained that just like Mr. Nottingham, the girl is adamant in going for her goal despite all the obstacles. The girl added that Isabelle has a heart of steel. Madeline confessed that thanks to the girl, she had started living her different life. Isabelle asked if the protagonist was worried about Ian. The girl said that she wasn't at all. But the heroine recalled how she asked the boy in the rain not to go to war and noticed that the girl often looks into his room, and offered to write a letter for the boy, assuring him that it would reach him in 3 days. The girl thanked Isabelle for the invitation, but assured her that she wasn't particularly worried and wasn't going to spend any money on a letter. Madeline quickly changed the subject, saying she had to get to work soon.